Again, welcome to Jackson State University. For the record, please state your name.
Margaret Kibbee. Margaret Kibbee.
Right? How you spell that?
Kibbee.
Okay. Early in life, did you prepare yourself for a career?
Not really.
Okay. Now, do you have later on did you attend undergraduate school?
I went to college. I was taking
Yes.
liberal arts, but as far as exactly what I was going to do with it, I didn't know.
Okay. Now your roots are not Mississippi at all.
No, no more. Well, not Mississippi at all. That's correct. I had a mother who had been raised in the South, North Carolina, and she used to tell me about how things were wrong, and she looked forward to seeing things change. But she couldn't get out of the South fast enough.
Okay.
And so she had gone to San Francisco and was in various left-wing movements and to work with Harry Bridges and the Longshoremen's Union, and they were messing dabbing with the Communist Party and different other activities. And so there were political involvements in the Bay Area that I was sort of exposed to.
I see.
Dr. Ashton,
All
stop
right.
right where you are.
Sure.
Stop. Rolling, sir.
Okay. So you were saying that you became interested in labor union work.
In organized type work, and
Yes.
community work. As a teenager, I was thinking not in so much as a career as service.
Yes.
And one time I thought about the Peace Corps,
Mm.
and I was going to skip college to go to Peace Corps. And then when I thought about it some more, I said, well, there's a movement going on in the South, and I'm ready for that. And that seems where I have more of a responsibility to go there.
And so you found yourself in the southeastern section of the United States. Then you came to Mississippi
Yes.
at the outset.
I was in college. I wanted to come early, and I couldn't afford it, so I saved my money and went when I could go.
I see.
And I joined Friends of SNCC on my college campus, and I made an application to come to the South and
Okay.
work in the civil rights movement.
Okay.
And filled out the application, and I got a psychiatric interview, as my mother said.
Mm-hmm.
They determined that I was just crazy enough to want to go to Mississippi. But not bother anybody when I got there. And so I went through that process. I was accepted and approved. And as soon as school let out that semester, I was headed south.
All right. So now, who did you, should I say, initially meet to sort of involve you at the outset into the civil rights movement?
As I said, we had a group on campus.
Okay.
And we talked about it all the time. And it was Friends of SNCC. We met
Okay.
regularly. We raised money for the South, for SNCC,
Okay.
the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party. We did have a person, and this was a coincidence because I didn't know this was going to happen. We did have a person from Sunflower County going to school at College of Marine, and he turned out to be that's where I wound up, but I had no idea that's where I was going to be, in Sunflower County.
Oh, okay.
It was kind of an accident. I mean, it was a little chaotic when I got to Jackson,
Yes.
and so there were people in Jackson running around with the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party, and somebody from the office came and got me, and the cars were just going
Yes,
places, and people
yes.
said, I heard it's really exciting in Sunflower County, let's go. I
Mm,
said, okay, let's go.
Yes.
So I went up to Sunflower County, and I was really thankful that that's where I did wind up, because the people that I worked with were good organizers,
Yes.
understood how to do this kind of work, gave me a lot of direction and instruction, how to do this, who to go to, what to avoid, what not to avoid, what to do, and who I could count on for help. I did more voter registration work than I thought I was going to do. That's mostly what I did at first, but that's what I was doing when I got there. And the people I was with were well organized, and we had the little block meetings.
Yes, block
attend
meetings.
those.
So your liaison or your relationship with Fannie Lou Hamer was strong, or was it sort of
It was,
peripheral?
how do I want to say this? I was actually in Indianola, and I was
Okay.
working under Otis Brown Jr.
Okay.
But Charles McLaurin was our like regional supervisor,
Okay.
and he used to come through there all the time. And of course, we were connected with Mrs. Hamer, but she was in Louisville and we were in Indianola.
Yes.
But we would come and visit her and talk to her, and we would go to Louisville sometimes to pick up people to go try to get them registered to vote.
Yes.
Yeah, but the majority of my work was in Indianola, and we had a little office, and I was directly responsible and answered to Otis Brown Jr.
Okay. So now your team was a fairly select one. Was it fairly large? What kind of
Oh, it was
organizational
like
structure was
yeah,
that? Was
it
it
was
10 people, 6 people?
Originally, yes, I'd say maybe 10.
Okay.
Because you had volunteers from various
Okay.
parts of the country, some from New York,
Mm-hmm.
others from different parts of California, quite a number from California actually, and one or two from Ohio and someplace else. There were a few people from a place called Indianola, Iowa, and Winnetka, Illinois.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had these people, we all worked together, and but Otis was the one who told us what to do. And we would take turns, we have a list, we'd take turns going down certain streets
Mm-hmm.
and asking people to get registered to vote and making appointments
Mm-hmm.
for people to get picked up to go register to vote. We would take turns sitting by the courthouse, taking note of who came up there, who
Mhm.
actually passed, got registered, which if you took 6, you were lucky to get 1.
Mm-hmm.
And
So what about the intimidation, or should I say, the cooperation of the local authorities and the like?
at
You all,
that point, they were less intimidating, other than they were just sort of nasty once they got in
Okay.
there. These people got in, and you would tell people this,
mm-hmm.
and they shouldn't let them get registered to vote.
Mm-hmm.
Then after August, when a new circuit clerk took office,
Oh.
things got better.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was funny how you drag people up there with nothing. Oh, I didn't know it was that easy. I would have been
yes.
up here if I'd known it was like that.
Yes. So now, can you drop on me any names of persons who were in authoritative position that maybe in the end sped up the process in the courthouse or resisted to the very last, whatever?
Well, I really cannot remember the name of the racist, antiquated circuit clerk who was there when I got
Okay.
there because
Okay.
the Voting Rights Act had passed, but he did not recognize it.
Mm-hmm.
And then when the other person took office, Sam Eli, he did recognize it. And
Mhm.
there were new people in the office. It was totally different. And
So they had abandoned at that point these tests that they had for
Yep.
blacks and all
When-
that, or did they try to, continue some kind of
June and July, I think
elimination
there were
process?
some kind of test or some questions people couldn't
Yes.
answer.
Okay.
Because earlier, we had a practice test where we were trying to show people how to do the
Oh, okay.
interpretation of the Constitution.
Mhm.
That somehow blacks could never interpret and white boys could. But we'd sort of gotten away from that at that
Mhm.
point, and because for June and July, I know that they were going to ask a question that the people could not answer. They just were not going to register most people, but you kept going.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Now, as far
Didn't give
as
up. Yes.
real visible intimidation, like the police sitting around or people just even paying very much attention to it,
Mhm.
that had settled down.
Mm-hmm.
There really wasn't too much attention paid to people coming. And I would just sit there by the door, and then when a car would come up with people coming, then I would try to make
Mm-hmm.
them feel more comfortable and all that sort of thing, and talk to them when they came out and ask what happened.
Mm-hmm.
And we would keep track of that, who actually had made it, who hadn't. And we knew what people's reaction to us was going to be out on the street too, when
Yeah.
we went down the block. We had
Mhm.
a chart. I mean, like for instance, there was a very nice lady, Church of God in Christ,
Mhm.
who just wasn't going to vote. And, you know, lady told me, now you get a piece of watermelon or a piece of cake, but you won't get them to register to vote.
Oh, really?
Hmm.
I see. Now,
And then some people were afraid. They weren't going to show
now, the team of you all, in other words, sort of, did you all have housing pretty much in close? Did you all live in one
Well,
residence? How did you all solve the problem of housing for that duration of time?
okay, different ones
Okay.
hook up with I mean, they tried to work it out. Like, for instance, there was a young couple that volunteered to
Okay.
take me in.
Mm-hmm.
That's lasted for a little while, and then their landlord pressured them, and I had to move. I think I had as much trouble with housing as anybody.
I see.
And I live in some conditions.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Something else.
Other way, if you didn't have the commitment, you would have to return to California.
Yeah, well, I was committed.
Yes.
And but there were like two places that you could really sort of count on.
Mm-hmm.
And there, for instance, there was this lady named Martha Ford store.
Okay.
And she had a house in the back of her store,
Okay.
and, or a room rather, and we could always stay there. And so eventually that's where I wound up, in the back of Ford's store. The other people who were real friendly to me might have me in for a meal, but there'd be various reasons why I couldn't stay there.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, I went through some places.
Yeah.
But by that time I wound up in the back of Ford's store. In addition to the things with voter registration, one other thing I want to say about Ford's store. She had like a safe or a good place to put money.
Okay.
And we were trying to raise money to replace the Freedom School that had
Yes.
burned in Indianola.
Yes.
And so we kept it locked up in her store. Just down the street, a dead-end street, was our office, our in-repeat office for Indianola.
Mm-hmm.
And so we could park right across the street from the store, and that would be guard duty for both the office and the store. Because we had to
Okay.
watch the store to protect it.
Oh,
We knew
yeah.
they'd be after both places.
Oh, yes.
And see, the store was a drive-through, so you could just go from one main street to another and get the store.
Mm-hmm.
And so we would be there, and then when we had everybody there, we would also have somebody in the office. I love guarding in the office because we had a pretty good library,
Oh,
and I did a
okay.
lot of reading.
Yes.
But we would go back and forth between the store and the office, but we had to come to the store no matter what.
So now, when you took on such an assignment and the like, you knew that you would live in Mississippi
I
for
thought
2
I was-
years, at
no.
least 1 year. How
I
did you?
thought I was coming
commit
for this
yourself?
summer.
Okay.
I was pre-registered for school that fall,
Mm-hmm.
and I was going to come in June, and I was going to go back home in September.
Oh,
That's what I thought.
yes.
And when September came and everybody else was leaving, but the work was still the same. I mean,
Yes.
it wasn't that anything had been finished or
Yes.
accomplished, and there were people there who were still trying to do this work and had no help. And it was easier for me to do it because I had nothing else to do. That's what I did.
I see.
You couldn't expect local people who had to make a living
Yes.
to do all of it. I mean, of course, they
Yes.
were going to help you, or you were going to help them.
Yes.
But the people who could do it full time were all leaving. I was the only one who stayed.
Yes.
And so I couldn't leave. And I just called my mother. I said, go cancel my classes. I'm not coming.
I see.
And try to figure out who's going to send me money, because my money was calculated to
Yes.
run out in September.
Sure.
So they figured out a way. And, after some negotiation, we got that straight. So
I see.
stayed on.
I see. Easing on to maybe some of the more realistic problems. What were some of the hardcore problems other than, should I say, getting people registered to vote? What about the sense of community that you all were trying to have, say, in the Delta? Were you in any instance caught up in the Delta ministry or anything like that? You remember the Delta ministry?
Well, I remember the Delta Ministry. We actually worked with some of the people
Okay.
in the Delta Ministry as they come through.
All right.
At that time, they were based in Greenville.
Yes.
and which is right, kind of our escape place
Right.
from Indianola. And so we had association with people from the Delta Ministry. And then later on, I think later on in '65, and I know into '66, we all wound up in Sunflower Town.
Really?
Yeah, we were unable to get the building replaced in Sunflower
Okay.
Town,
Okay.
Indianola. So we got land to build a community center in Sunflower. So we all moved over to Sunflower.
Okay.
And I helped Otis, and we had other local people to build a community center. That's when I learned about lead paint.
Yes.
But anyway, we got out there and helped build a community center. It was a big old community center. That's where we had meetings. We had the
Yes.
Freedom School. We started a little sewing co-op. We did a lot of good.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Typically, what was the night program like in these schools? You know, what were you all teaching other than, should I say, good citizenship and trying to know how to vote and the like? But what other?
I was trying to teach children some Black history things.
Okay.
And we would sometimes have addresses for people who had good centers or good information in other places.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember the name of the man, but there was a man in Los Angeles who had a pretty good organization, and I remember having the kids write him for some of their information.
Mm.
So it would be Black history.
I see. All right. Now, how are things going here, in your estimation, at this Veterans Conference? You've been here for 1 or 2 days. Is the agenda pretty much covering what is relevant to the civil rights movement today?
I think
Education,
so. Yes,
right
I
of
think we're talking
human
about the
rights.
education aspect of this. And my own feeling, and this is what I'm feeling here at the conference, which I
Okay.
think is important, is that we need to emphasize Mississippi civil rights history.
Okay.
To me, it's unique, special, and teaches us a great deal about what happened and how really this country got changed by Mississippi, the civil
Mhm.
rights movement in Mississippi.
Mhm.
And you won't see anything like the kind of block organization we had, the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party had in Mississippi. You won't see that anyplace else hardly.
Mhm.
And the ultimate changes that it had. And even when our organization couldn't keep going like that at the pace that we had it in '65, there were 1 or 2 block organizations that went on for several years later. I was
Mhm.
surprised to find
Mhm.
that we're still meeting and still talking about candidates and voting and this sort of thing.
Mhm.
And local people, local heroes, I call them,
Yeah.
kept these things going.
So now, in the 50s and the like, who can you identify here at the conference that you might say was very much a force back then that you can relate to?
Well, Charles McLaurin and Lawrence Guidon, they
Okay.
back then and
All
I know
right.
them now.
Okay,
Like
those
Lauren
two.
and I stayed friends.
Okay.
Well, I've known Owen Brooks forever, and I know he
Oh,
worked
okay.
with the Delta Ministry. And see, like the Delta Ministry paid people who worked with us. I mean,
Mhm.
we worked on political things, and we were running a candidate in Sunflower for the first chance to elect a black mayor and black
Mhm.
board of aldermen. The Delta Ministry had employees and had money there too that helped us out. I
Mhm.
didn't see as much actual work from the Delta Ministry other than to know that they were there when I was in Indianola, but then different people, and this was a very good thing that the Delta Ministry did, different people who were still doing this kind of work were able to get employment with the Delta Ministry
Yeah.
to continue doing it.
Mhm.
So you had people doing voter registration and people doing different community activities that were paid stipend by the Delta Ministry, so they were able to continue doing this. And keep in mind that sometimes people got into the movement and they weren't going to get hired anyplace else.
Yes.
There were people who were working other places who
Mhm.
started working with us and they lost their jobs.
Yes.
And a few years later they were able to get them back, but the Delta Ministry provided a valuable source for people who were more serious and they could work for the Delta Ministry.
So now, were they in the cycle of maybe that 4 to 6 year period, were they able to increase their budget, or was it shrinking and the like for the most part, as you might have observed or you may not have
It
observed?
seemed like it was maybe shrinking,
Yes.
although they kept going for a while. And
Okay.
then some of the people, well, like for instance, Jake Ayers,
Mhm.
able to get into another organization
Mhm.
and keep on going, keep
Mhm.
on doing the same kind of work.
Mhm.
Like for several years, he was supported by the Dutch.
And so the politicians, in other words, tried to push the Delta ministry out of Mississippi,
Oh, yeah, I would think so.
and of course there was a little conflict, should I say, between the denominations to some degree, when you say the Presbyterians and the Methodists and the Baptists and all of them still working in harmony in the 60s.
As far as I knew, because see,
okay,
it was
outside,
harder
yeah.
for me to
Okay.
ascertain that.
Yeah, I see.
Yeah, and
I
I
see.
was really in Baptist country.
Okay, okay, all right. Uh, is there a process that you might could relate that would be good for seeing that the civil rights movement stay alive and on course in Mississippi? Is there a kind of, I mean, other than this conference and the like, you think that this is going to be forthcoming for the next 5 years or more? Or do you feel as if there need to be a process put in place that might be equally good at keeping the agenda of the veterans for the state?
Well, I think that's what we are trying to do
Okay.
with this conference, is to make sure that the state keeps it on their agenda, keeps the purposes of this conference on their agenda.
Mhm.
Now, I personally know some of the state senators, state representatives are aware of this,
Mhm.
and will keep our purposes. And we let them know,
Mhm.
people like Willie Bailey and David Jordan,
Mhm.
Senator Rawls, and Bill Perkins, what
Mhm.
they understand is what the movement meant to them, how the movement had a lot to do with where they are today and why they're there today. I know how dedicated to the movement and respectful of the movement and the purpose of the movement Willie Perkins was. I worked with him at Legal Services. And so
He's not here this
No.
conference. Who is Willie Perkins? I mean,
Willie Perkins
so-
is an attorney from Greenwood, Mississippi.
Oh, okay.
He's a state senator.
Oh, okay. All right. So, can you identify some of the landmarks that might need to be preserved around Jackson State or throughout Mississippi that would that should be considered funded or whatever? Landmarks in Mississippi that need to be preserved for the civil rights movement.
I'm not as aware of what needs to be preserved in Jackson, except I can remember how important Farish Street was, or things on Farish Street were. I'm part of a project in Sunflower County where we're working on preserving the Van Hammer Garden.
Okay.
And we have meetings about that.
How does it come along?
It's coming on very well. And we're working on different little parts of building the garden up.
Is this private money?
Well, it's
how-
sponsored through the city right
Oh,
now.
really?
We're raising money, and there's certain conditions that go with the money. There's one of the Board of Aldermen, Heather Jordan, is very important on this and good at pulling this together. But we have other people in Sunflower County who are very good about keeping this garden together and keeping that project going forward.
Mm.
And will honor it. She's buried there at the garden, but the garden further on is a landmark for people to visit. And there's a grant, about $100,000 grant, where parts of the money are, you have to spend it a certain way, and you have to have matching labor, free labor, or something like this, so, which my labor is really free, I mean, but there are a group of us who go help do things or get in the way or something, but they get credit for us being there. But there's some people who work with the county and the city for equipment, and they're actually
Now, you find yourself in and out of the state 2 and 3 times a year, or just about
Most
once
of
or
it is,
twice?
I stay in Mississippi most of the time. I moved to Greenville
Oh, you did?
back in the 80s, and I'm there most of the time.
Mhm. Now, are there ways that you see that this conference can be improved, say, in the immediate future?
I think it's a good conference. They get down to what they're here for. I mean, I haven't been able to be in all the sessions as I would have liked to be. I had to go to work for a little while yesterday. But they have purposes, and we get to the purposes. There aren't really too many people here. There's a group of dedicated, committed people here who are intelligent. We don't waste the time with silly discussions and things like this. They have a purpose, and we're moving here with a purpose. And, people who are actually over it, like Owen Brooks and Alice Watkins, are very focused people, I think they keep it moving in a good direction. The discussion group, the workshop group that I was in on Thursday evening was blessed and the Lord was getting that, and it was a very good focused discussion. So it'd be hard for me to say what improvement I can think of.
I see. Now, are there any unsolicited comments you like to make that maybe that I didn't hit up on that you want to share with me at this point before I sort of close it down here?
No, only that I'm glad that this conference is being convened. That I think that we all share a purpose, that the movement in Mississippi, about its importance and what it can teach the rest of us. I was struck a few months ago. I went to one of my grandson's schools in Greenville, and they had Black History Month, and they had pictures all over the place. And I was disappointed that I didn't see enough recognition of what had happened in Mississippi. And I said, I'm saying these children are studying about Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King, but we have a lot of people here. This movement was, to me, the most vital and important movement, and I think the children need to be more aware of what Mississippi did and what happened here.
A million thanks for your cooperation. Thank you very much. Okay. Now, if you would be kind and do still in the
Smith Robinson Museum here in Jackson, Mississippi. Smith Robinson Oral History Project today has Mr. Jimmy Garrett, and I will be interviewing Mr. Jimmy Garrett shortly. Let me introduce him to the audience. Mr. Garrett, do I have your permission to do this interview, sir?
Yes.
Thank you. And start us off, if I may call you Jimmy, start us off by giving us some background information, your biographical information about yourself, where you were born, etc.
I was born in Dallas, Texas, December 31st, 1942. I was raised in Dallas for the first, 11 years, and my family, my mother and father, and my middle brother, my older brother, moved to California. I'm the youngest of three children who were born alive. My mother was one of 7 children, and they were basically urban.
Her name?
Louise Garrett. Louise Crowder, then Garrett.
All right.
All the women in the family worked as maids in the White homes. My mother, from the 4th grade on, she left the 4th grade. My father's family were
His name?
His name is Harold.
Harold.
Harold Garrett.
Is it Carol?
No, Harold. Harold. My father's family were landowners. They were landowners within a large ranch in southeast Texas. And his family, or my father's, the males of my father's family broke horses, and they won land on the basis of breaking horses. They weren't really paid money, they were paid in land. They ended up with about 5,000 acres of land. So my father, when he was a young man, became interested in sports, and he ended up being one of the members of several all-black baseball teams as a pitcher, mainly as a pitcher, but he played a lot of positions.
Did he play pro or amateur?
For pro.
Pro
It
ball?
was, yeah, pro ball,
Pro baseball?
pro baseball,
Negro League?
Negro leagues. Traveling through, I mean, the leagues took on people who, to sometimes to fill their rosters.
Mm-hmm.
And my father was one of those who was a roster filler of traveling in the South.
Mm-hmm.
And he became active in the Southern Negro Youth Congress through that. And my mother's family were, I guess, active in churches, but not politically.
So
That's
Louis
Burnham.
Burnham. I
And-
knew Louis Burnham.
Okay.
Isn't that interesting?
Right.
Okay. All right. Sorry to interrupt you.
No
Carry
problem.
on.
And so that's just to give that sort of background. So, but I was my family when my mother and father settled in. They were married in the mid-30s. My mother already had a son, Charles. He was my half brother, and we all lived in the same family. But we didn't make those kinds of distinctions, at least not so far as I was concerned. We mainly made our
Was
life.
Charles older than you?
He was the oldest.
Charles was the oldest.
He's the oldest. My brother Earl is the middle, and I'm the young. My brother Earl is still alive. My older brother died some years ago.
And your early years were spent in Dallas? Is that
Yeah,
right?
based in Dallas. I went to school, elementary
and
school.
secondary?
Well, no, I went to elementary school. Went to the 8th grade,
Okay.
and after the 8th grade, we left. That's when we moved to California. And I mean, the economic life was between doing work in the city. My father always worked in maintenance, house cleaning, or office building cleaning, and he tried to set up his own business along with a number of people who came out of World War II. Basically the authorities in Dallas just burned these buildings down so that they couldn't have a business. So my father farmed out to do that kind of work. My mother worked as a maid, and most of the rest of the people in our family picked chop cotton, pig cotton, or worked in the stripping cane, picking corn in Louisiana. We did cotton and watermelon in Texas, East Texas, around Marshall, areas like that, and then down in the bayou we did cane. So that's some of my travels from the time I was 8. We would take time out from school to do those things in order to supplement whatever basic income that came from my mother being a maid.
And where did you move to in California? And when did you move to
We moved
California?
in 1956. Took place in Texas. A group of young men who had come out of the Korean War, pardon me, and they joined the NACP to move the NACP forward. A group of young men and women too led a boycott, tried to boycott the Texas State Fair. Those days, black people could only go to the state fair on 2 days, on Juneteenth, June 19th, and on Columbus Day. Those are the 2 days we were allowed to go to the fair, and they doubled the cost for each ride. They tried to boycott it, and 6 of them were, 6 weeks later, were arrested for raping a white woman. And Tommy Lee Walker, 21 days, 3 of them were tried and convicted of rape.
3 of them.
3 of them. And that included my cousin, Plebs Williams. And the first 2 were executed. Well, one was executed, and then a while later another was executed, and my my cousin was sequestered from a jail and taken out to Arlington and killed. The other three were then given life sentences. And my father's position was that those two times, the times that it had happened to him, where his businesses with a group of young blacks coming out of World War II were burned to the ground. And then this incident, he decided he was no longer going to stay in the South. And so he moved south in...
He moved what?
I mean, he moved west in
56?
and we moved the next year.
Uh-huh.
And so I went to school then my schooling then was consolidated in Los Angeles. My junior high school, my last year of junior high school, and my first year of high school, through high school was in, I went to Carver Junior High, and then moved on to Jefferson High School. So that's basically the foundation.
All right. And Jefferson, let's see, Carver Junior High, and what year did you graduate Jefferson?
61.
Carry on. Were you, well, you obviously were aware of racism and the oppression of black people from your days in Texas, even though you were a bit younger, but you were aware. And what did you find in California along those lines when you got to L.A.?
Well, it's culture shock. We were, I mean, I had grown up under a system of apartheid. So in Texas, there was a black system, there was a black schools and the white schools, and the black schools had very few resources.
Mm-hmm.
When I got to California, what I found was that the difference was that there were mainly white teachers, but our resources were still second-hand, passed on. Books, in our biology classes, were almost everything that we received.
Was it a co-educational high school?
Oh yeah. Thomas Jefferson High School is famous for producing athletes. So, that's there was the big difference was the culture shock, and the fact that there were Asians and a fair number of Spanish-speaking people at my school at Jefferson, and so that was one kind of culture shock. I was passed from the assumption was when I went to high school that they had these tracking systems, and I was put in the lowest track because I came from a southern school. But I had a cousin who knew the most influential teacher at Jefferson. And one day I went from the dumbest track to the smartest track. So I went from being dumb to being smart in a matter of a couple of, maybe 15 minutes.
Oh my.
And so that's Miss Campbell. I'll never forget Miss Campbell. Miss Campbell is the person who, I guess if you want to put it that way, rescued me. Because in that short period of time, all the males who were in the dumb group were joined street gangs. And I, of course, joined a street gang called the Businessmen, which I stayed in even when I was in the smart group. So that was the beginning of my social organization outside the church.
Was that street gang operated in your neighborhood?
Oh yeah, there were a number of street gangs.
Yeah, right.
But the one that in my neighborhood was called the Businessmen.
Okay.
That's the street gang that produced Bunchy Carter.
No, I'm not
Panther
supposed to know who that is.
Yeah, well, he was one of the people who was killed, and he was a Panther, member of the Panther Party. And he was a person who was a friend of mine from those days.
Okay, and what started your period of activism? Could you help me understand that?
Yeah, well, I was in what happened was a combination of factors. I was in the street gangs, and I'd gotten involved in fights on the campus, and I ended up getting involved in a fight with an instructor who tried to break up a fight, who then called us some names, called us some nigger names, and said, and so I ended up battling with him, and instead of usually what happens is that if you get involved in a fight with the teacher, you were kicked out of school, and then you had to you either went to what we call Europe, which was youth authority, or you went to or they send you to a settlement house. And because I made good grades, I was sent to a settlement house called the Avalon Community Center. And it was at the Avalon Community Center that I became aware, and because this woman Opal Jones would bring people from CORE or the NACP to talk about these things, and we had to endure it, except that I became excited by it. The possibility. I was 14 when I became involved with the community center, and it's the community center that weaned me off the being involved with the games into being involved in the community center. It was there that I met people who they so impressed me that that it was a mind-changing piece. I went from so that summer my mother sent me back to Dallas in summer of '60.
Who was back in Dallas?
And my family, most of my family,
They
the
were still
extended
there?
family.
They were still
The
in Dallas?
extended family.
Okay.
I mean, there are 300 members of my family there. I was
Oh, my
now.
God.
So we have a very large family.
I did.
And I was sent back to Dallas to get me away from the street gangs. And I ran right into the NACB youth group who had started the sit-ins in Dallas. And I ended up getting arrested 7 times. Far more than I've been arrested for being involved with the street gang. But at the end of that summer, where we had gone, we were imitating what was happening with the kids in North Carolina and Oklahoma, Tennessee, other places, and we were all finally checked out of the NACP Youth Council. And
For demonstrating?
For demonstrating, yeah. And but I spent my summer with these people, with these high school kids who were my age, who were involved in the movement, and they introduced me to the movement. That fall, I went back and went to the Avalon Community Center talking about what I had been involved in, and I got hooked up with the American Friends Service Committee.
AFSC.
And the American Friends Service Committee, which was located, its headquarters was about 20 miles away in Pasadena, and I became active in both the local stuff around the center. The center became a place for what was beginning to be a support mechanism for the Southern Freedom Movement. Essentially what happened is that I then went on Freedom Rides that next spring with a combination of CORE and American Friends Service Committee organized 22 people to come to a bus. And
Anybody go get a beat?
Excuse me. Carry on.
22 people, well, I'm sorry, there were 27 people on our bus. Some came down from San Francisco. There were 27 people on the bus. 22 were white and 5 were black.
Where were you headed?
We headed to Houston, and from Houston to New Orleans, where everything stopped. CORE had projects in Louisiana.
Had you actually joined CORE by that time?
Yeah, well, I became a part of CORE. It's kind of osmosis, I didn't join, but I ended up being a part of CORE at the end of that time that we spent in the Orleans Parish prison. we spent some days in solitary confinement where we were beaten up in Houston, and then I got a rib crack. It wasn't much. I mean, I must have weighed 100 pounds on my heaviest days in those days, and I looked like I was about 10. So but then we went on to New Orleans where we weren't beaten up. We were just marched right out of the Greyhound station, it's a Greyhound station. Both Continental Trailways and Greyhound went to the same bus terminal. And we were just marched right through into the police cars and taken to the jail where we were held for trespassing. And it was there that I learned freedom songs. It was there that I learned about the movement beyond that which I had learned in.
Place me in time, Jimmy. What year was that?
This was 1961, spring of 1961. And so that was that. Came back from that, and I was locked in for life.
You went back to L.A.?
Went back to Los Angeles after that. Got involved with the American Friends Service Committee, joined CORE, started organizing demonstrations, working with demonstrations in CORE around integrating this or that. Went back down to New Orleans into Plaquemine Parish in '63 with CORE, but they got run out of Plaquemine. We got run out of Plaquemine Parish, Louisiana. So during that whole period from '61 to '63, I was involved with CORE. When CORE was kicked out, literally, Leander Perez was the guy who ran Plaquemine Parish.
I don't remember that name.
And he was talking about building a moat and putting people in prison on an island.
Crazy.
And putting alligators in the moat. And so people got up out of there.
Yeah.
And so it was after that I met Jane Cortez and some of the other people who were associated with SNCC. And I became kind of active in both. And then became more active in SNCC, but I was never inactive with CORE. I was just more active with SNCC until I started to work in Mississippi.
Okay, 63. Did you go to March on Washington?
Yeah, I was the kind of the youth. It was a United Civil Rights Committee that had been formed and basically to support the King, SCLC. And that was lobbying for a youth representative, and I was elected as a youth representative on that committee. So I was on the celebrity plane. Belafonte and Portier and Burt Lancaster in his day. All those people. And most of these people I didn't know. But, later, that was to serve well when I began to raise funds for SNCC. But at that time, I was on the plane, and a very funny thing happened. I was asked to impersonate Sammy Davis Jr. because we're about the same size. And so I was supposed
Who
to
made
throw
that request?
There's no telling. It might have been. It was another one of the stars. He was making a joke.
Oh, that was on the airplane?
Jim Garner. Yeah, no, coming off the plane. When we came off the plane, then we just said, well, why don't do your. So they gave me a hat. So I went, but nobody cared. It was a joke. It was a joke to me. People played with Sammy Davis a lot. The whites did a lot. So yes, I went to the March on Washington. We were at the front. We moved because it was a celebrity group, and I ended up being around with Cortland and Jim Foreman and others while they were trying to work on John's speech, and I was really impressed by all of that.
And you returned from the march?
Returned from the march.
To L.A. again?
Back to L.A. And went down. Well, what happened was that, you had the kids killed, and then King was killed, and
You
people.
talking about Birmingham?
Yeah. And so I became in Birmingham, and then not King, Kennedy was killed in November.